Germany is still in shock after the knife attack in the western city of Solingen, where 3 people were killed and 8 wounded on a Friday night. While families process the grief and horror, questions arise. Why is Germany subject to these types of attacks? The suspected perpetrator, with alleged links to ISIS, came from Syria, eluded the German authorities, and committed murder. The result? Heated political debates about weapon laws, deportations, and asylum. All this just days before crucial state elections. On To The Point, we ask, after the Solingen knife attack, should Germany change its migration policy? Welcome to this week's To The Point. I'm Javier Arguedas. It's good to have you with us. And let's meet today's guests. Hans-Jakob Schindler is a terrorism expert and director of the Counter Extremism Project. Amir Musawy is a freelance journalist from Iraq who just returned from reporting in Solingen. And Morten Freidel is the deputy editor-in-chief of NZZ Germany, joining us from the city of Zürich. To all of you, welcome. Thank you for being with us today. We have a little bit of a manual today, but we'll certainly do our best. And I'd like to start with you, Amir. You just got back from Solingen. How would you describe the aftermath of this attack in Germany?
Well, I saw a city again, Solingen, full of anger and also sadness. People asking in the street, why should that happen again in our city? Some people still afraid, especially the immigrants. They are afraid of the reaction over them, and the city is full of police and full of the investigation. Of course, this is one of the bloody attack in the city happened there. And what I noticed that some people trying to find answers from the responsible politicians. Why our law, strong law, still not run out, still not without a result preventing that attack. And still there is a more question, but no answers.
Answers that may come from investigations. Hans, ISIS claimed responsibility for this attack. However, German authorities still have to provide clear evidence. How do you, as an expert, assess the events in Solingen?
Look, I mean, in the last couple of years, we have seen a very concerned campaign by the Islamic State to, again, concentrate on terror attacks abroad, including in Europe, including in Germany. It is also true that terrorism only functions if you are in the media, and justifiably since October last year, media reporting had concentrated on Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis in Yemen. And no one talked about ISIS or Al-Qaeda, so they were under pressure to do something. So we saw that in Moscow a couple of months ago. We saw a real serious attempt at the Taylor Swift concerts in Vienna a couple of weeks ago. And unfortunately, now they were successful also here in Germany, in Solingen.
Let's go over to Zürich, Morten. When we hear all of this, Germany has rather been regarded as a safe country so far. Do you think that sense of security is changing?
Yes, apparently it is, or evidently it is. Many people in Germany fear that that the inner safety in Germany is going down, and you can also see a huge problem with migration policy. So if you look at the surveys or polls, many Germans are very concerned about the migration policy of the German government. They're not happy with what is happening. There's a lot of illegal migrants flowing into the country. Last year, we had 350,000 asylum seekers that came into the country. And I think this is a very important point to look at.
We'll certainly delve into the aspect of migration. First, we will have a look at what ISIS is actually doing. With the multiple wars and crises, as we just mentioned, the threat posed by the so-called Islamic State has somewhat faded into the background. However, for security experts, it was always clear the threat has not disappeared. It was just waiting for the right moment.
The shock runs deep. People in Solingen are stunned. The uncertainty as to why this had to happen, why innocent people had to die. Why weren't the borders where they were allowed to cross properly controlled? Memories of the 2016 attack on the Berlin Christmas market come flooding back. when 13 people were killed by an IS supporter. It was the last major attack in Germany that IS officially claimed responsibility for. Since then, lone Islamist-motivated perpetrators have carried out numerous other attacks. Last March, a terrorist attack on a concert hall in Moscow, Russia was allegedly carried out by an IS affiliate. More than 140 people were killed. The methods of terror have changed. Instead of planning an elaborate attack, the suspected perpetrator used a knife and acted alone. Chancellor Scholz visited the crime scene in Solingen and promised stricter gun laws.
Das war Terrorismus.
That was terrorism. Terrorism against us all, which threatens our lives, our coexistence, the way we live. But how can an open society protect itself from terrorism?
Hans, you already mentioned that the media has focused on other issues and not putting ISIS in the foreground. However, whoever follows the news has also heard that ISIS has actually weakened over the years. Is that perception wrong? How powerful is it these days, and how much damage can it cause in Europe?
Well, look, I mean, in 2019, the physical expression of the Islamic State, the caliphate in Syria and Iraq, ended. However, since that time, ISIS has actually seen a massive growth, partially also because we are no longer taking care of the problem at the core of where these terrorist operations operate. Since 2019, significant reductions of military operations in Syria and Iraq. Since 2021, we collectively withdrew from Afghanistan. Since 2023, partially on decisions by the UN to end missions there, partially because the military regimes in West Africa asked us to leave. No more ability to put pressure on ISIS or Al-Qaeda, who have incredible amount of fighters, money, and weapons in West Africa. So we are no longer fighting terrorism in its core areas, and hence it's no real surprise that, of course, the terrorism threat in our own countries is increasing because the ideology hasn't changed. The strategy is weaken the West through a continuous stream of terror attacks. And so, of course, now they have more operational freedom in their core areas, more concentration, more energy, more efforts are put towards external attacks, including in Europe, including Germany.
And of course, they need operators to do those kinds of attacks or perform them here in Germany. For example, Amir, we hear that people, mainly young men, become radicalized. What do we know about that process in the first place and how it can be prevented?
Well, we noticed in the last years that the front line against Islamic State has been shifted from Syria to Iraq to Europe more and more through the radicalization, through internet, through platform of social media, things like TikTok or Facebook or Telegram. And as long as we don't have full access and full cooperation with that tech companies to find a solution and balancing between the liberation of the information and the data and also the protect of the society, if we are not find that point, we are still going to facing that war online. And suddenly, here or there, we will find some like wolves, like attack in Solingen, and will show us how weak is the security people, security police and authority here, because they are concentrating on the old method to dealing with that new developed threat.
But Germans are also very wary of data protection. Do you think they are willing to pay that price?
That is the point. I'm not now calling for something to forget all that liberal values, but there is a golden middle. We did not find that gold middle between the threat and between also our liberal values to protect. That's one. Two, there is a lot of job in the security service has been done or should be done to equipment them with more jobs and more capabilities to have stronger, modern troops to prevent that at least.
Morten, if we take a look at police figures and crime figures in Germany, it calls the attention that foreigners are overrepresented in those statistics. Why do you think that is, and why is it often ignored in public discussions?
Well, yes, foreigners are overrepresented in certain crime areas, that's right. And I think it's overlooked because the discussion always is about how do we get these people to live here properly, but not about the problems that arise with migration. I think there's a certain point in the discussion where we do not talk about these problems properly, but this has to shift. This has to change. I think we have to address these problems more openly, and of course we also have to address more openly what comes with illegal migration in huge numbers, because this is a problem that the German government sees very clearly. You just have to look at the polls, like I said before, and there is an election in the federal states on Sunday in Thüringen and Saxony, and if you look at the numbers, you see right-wing extremist parties like the Alternative for Germany on the rise, because the people fear that with this huge illegal immigration to the country, problems will arise, and I think this has to be addressed.
But the majority of the migrants, if I'm allowed to say, the majority of the migrants are safe people, they are friendly, they don't want to have that problem. They fled from that terror attack in their country, Iraq and Syria. I think the problem is not that number of the migrants. The problem is still how you can run out the law, how you use it in an efficient way to prevent that small minority taking that majority migrants as a hostage and talking in their name. That is the point.
That may be the point, but it's not the political discourse that we have been hearing the last few days, because some even call it a new German refugee crisis. The fact is, since 2020, the number of refugees in Germany has once again been rising sharply, and the number of illegal aliens is also increasing.
People are longing for Europe. Despite having nothing, they risk everything. Every day, people try to flee Europe, as seen here in Ceuta, off the Spanish mainland. Thousands die every year. For a long time, the EU has tried to stop criminal smugglers and control migration, with little success. Last year alone, EU member states reported a 20% increase in asylum applications. Their main destination is Germany. A third of all asylum applications are filed here. Many municipalities say they're at their limits and say they cannot accommodate any more people. German border checks have so far had little success. And it is difficult to deport migrants who have committed crimes back to their countries of origin, especially to Afghanistan or Syria, where their safety would be in doubt. Chancellor Scholz has announced once again that he is more determined than ever to deport criminals. Have politicians failed to manage migration?
I'll pass that question right on to you, Amir. Have politicians failed to manage migration?
I think you cannot blame the politicians that in the government now, because we are dealing with a problem in the long term. We should look back in the last 10, 15 years, what has been happened in the wrong way, that we're still in this position. I think the now government tried to make an agreement with some governments. For example, in Iraq, there were an agreement with Iraq government to bring a lot of Iraqis that not have right here as asylum, bring back. But still, this is the moving of that effort or go so slowly in comparison with the numbers of the new migrants. I think we should look in the basis of what we are going to accept. We would like to accept migrants in which conditions, and we should talk and discuss it far away from politicians, because you can see it in the next Sunday. That theme will play a big role in the politician arena, and it's maybe far away from the facts on the ground.
The facts on the ground are always difficult to read in situations of high emotional stress like we have right now. Hans, there seems to be this discourse, especially by some of the politicians here, that if Germany had stricter migration laws, the attack in Solingen would have never happened. Is that so?
That's a very complicated argument to make. Obviously, no one can argue that everything went well in the process of this particular individual. He was supposed to be extradited back to Bulgaria. But of course, Bulgaria is part of the European Union. So if he would have been really determined to conduct the attack in Germany, he came to Germany once from Bulgaria in 2022. There's really no barrier that would have prevented him from coming back a second time to conduct the attack. So the debate on how we're going to apply our laws as far as migration is concerned, how we optimize the procedures and make them more effective for extradition of individuals that are not supposed to be here, is a really important one. In my opinion, citizens need to see that their government can function. And clearly here something went wrong, and so you need to rectify this. But to say that this is the only or primary instrument that we need now to make Germany safer against international terrorism is simply ignoring how international terrorism works. If this individual had, as many others have, radicalized in the internet is not going to stop with extradition. It's going to continue. We have a permissive environment in the social media for all types of extremism. Platforms, as Amir has said, are not really helping or cooperating with law enforcement. The French authorities felt compelled to arrest the CEO of Telegram a couple of days ago because his platform is far too permissive for crime, major crime, child pornography, as well as drug dealing and arms dealing. So we have to find a new balance here and address these issues as well as issues of extradition procedures and migration control. But we also need to talk about the ability of the German security forces to actually monitor what's going on. And here we have moved very much into the direction of data protection in the last couple of years. So if we have to fight terrorism here, we'll have to be ready to fight terrorism here. That's the decision we made when we withdrew from the international operations. So we need to understand that Zeitenwende is more than tanks and guns and rockets. It has to also be a legal basis for the security forces to act, the technology to do so, and the personnel to operationalize that.
However, what we are hearing in the political debates all these days is rather the topic of migration. Morten, why do you think there's a focus on that topic specifically, despite the fact that we're just hearing that that may not be the solution? And is it even possible to significantly change asylum laws, for example, here in Germany?
Well, first of all, I agree that one terrorist attack, if a terrorist really wants to attack something, that it is hard to prevent all terrorist attack from happening or all criminals from doing criminal things. I think that's right, but I don't think that changing migration policy is not effective. And if you look at Friedrich Merz, the leader of the opposition party, he proposed very strict policies in the last days. He said that Germany should prevent all illegal migrants from entering the country at the borders, and that a conclusion with the European Union should be reached. And if it's not going to be reached, then he proposed that Germany has the duty and also the right and the duty, he said, to declare a state of national emergency and effectively bar any illegal migrant to enter the country. And of course, this is a very hard proposition, and I'm not sure if it's going to be working within the legal framework of the European Union. And also, he's just the opposition leader. But I do think that if you look at the German government, if you look at the Ministry of Interior and Nancy Faeser, you just don't see a certain effort to prevent illegal migrants from entering the country. One example are border controls. Nancy Faeser always hesitated to put in border controls into place. And when she did, in the context of the European Football Championship, they were very effective. The police got hold of smugglers. It prevented criminals from entering the country. It sent a signal to our neighboring states, to Poland, to the Czech Republic, and they also took care more of their borders when we sent out this signal. But after the European Football Championship, Nancy Faeser didn't want to keep these border controls in place. And I think that the German public sees this very clearly and just sees a lack of effort here in the German government. And I think this has to change.
But why?
If we do want to prevent these populist movements from becoming more and more powerful in Germany.
What is the reason for not wanting to keep those border controls? At least what's the reason that, that the government has stated?
Well, she said it's about the European framework. Of course, she's right, and she also said that the economy has problems when you put in effective border control, but nothing happened with the economy. Basically, all the trucks were able to enter the country, but effectively, many illegal immigrants and also smugglers were effectively hindered from entering the country. So it was very effective. So what Nancy Faeser stated in the beginning was clearly not correct, right? So I do not really know, but I would say that the German government, it's a coalition of the Social Democratic Party, the Liberals and the Greens, do not really want very strict migration policies in place. What they do want is they want to liberalize migration. You can also see that with the naturalization law, which was put in place in the end of June, when it's about helping migrants to get to this country. They're really quick in putting policies into place. When it's about hindering people to enter the country, it can take a much longer time. And I think that's a problem. And I think, it's a problem because populist movements are on the rise.
That's exactly the case. The populist movements, like the far-right AfD party, Amir, have always defended a discourse that is less prone to accepting migrants into the country, and that has also pledged to deport millions of people, or at least plans have arisen. Do you think the traditional parties in Germany can actually offer a solution to this pressing problem against a party that seems to get a hold of that sentiment in the population?
Unfortunately not. I cannot see a proper answer of that politicians in right wings. I still believe that the democratic parties in Germany still have the possibility to re-answer of that problem in another way, in a way that they properly run on the law on the ground, but in the same way also more equipment for the social worker, for the migrants, more control for the internet homepage. And also, maybe I come back to the control on the border. I am monitoring the smugglers on the platforms in like TikTok and so on. One of them, they say he wants to come to Germany, a migrant, and talking with a smuggler on TikTok, and he telling him, wait till the championship in France will finish, it will be easier for you. I mean, they know what is going on the ground, and this is more evidence. I mean, this is very funny when you walk, when you move on the platform, you will see how weak the law in the Germany and how they use that holes, the smugglers, to come through. I mean, you need more efficient people. People understand how they think that smugglers or how they think the migrants, and how you can find an answer for that.
I have 1 more minute left, and I'd like to ask you, Hans. Some say that insecurity is a price that a society that wants to be open and liberal has to pay. Do you agree with that assessment?
Of course, there's always a balance between security and freedom. The question is, what is that balance? And do we have found the right balance here in Germany at this point? I would argue we haven't. We have gone far too far into the data protection sphere here. We need to reevaluate that. And just to close off, the day where the AfD makes a proposal that is helpful or even legal has certainly not come yet. So this is not what we should be looking for solutions. This is a populist party who wants to misuse this situation for their own election purposes.
Mm-hmm. Morten, I'd like to ask you once more. Some say that this is just a shock reaction in Germany and that after a few days of debate, everything will turn back to normal. Is there a back to normal after the Solingen attacks?
I'm not quite sure if it is, because if you look at the last months, there were attacks before that, right? We had this in Mannheim. We had the policeman who was killed by an Islamist with a knife, and there have been more and more such attacks. And I think it's a very risky move if we just try to do like everything is perfectly normal. And I think this is a very risky move for the politicians to do. So I think there have to be some changes have to be made.
There's a lot at stake. We will see if those changes happen. To all three of you, thank you very much for today's debate. To you for watching. Remember, you can always watch our shows on YouTube. Just search for DW News and find To The Point. I'm Javier Arguedas. Till next time, take care and goodbye.